Wednesday morning. It's McCollum on Business. I'm Stephen McCollum, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you updated on what's happening around the business world. We'll get you updated with the market watch, stocks we're paying attention to, and also all your national and local stories that you need to know as well. And folks, it's a busy day yesterday with the stock market, and we got kind of more of a conclusion here in terms of the Iran war, or at least rumored closer to that conclusion. We'll tell you about that here in a second. But first, let's get into it with that market watch. And here, starting today, well, another good day here on the market. Yesterday, our system we used was a little messed up, but today it is accurate out there. The Dow Jones right now is up that 214 points as we're looking at it here. For reaching 50,664. Now, the S&P 500, it's just barely up, basically even, 10 points up right now, 75.27 for the S&P 500. NASDAQ, though, is up here this morning. Early here in trading, it's up 27 points to 26,683. Cybersecurity stocks are having a major pullback today, affecting the S&P 500. Especially a lot of those cybersecurity stocks are in that index there also. So NASDAQ barely up as well. Then you got the Russell 2K there up 9 points, 10 points right now, 29.30 there for the Russell 2K. Then there's Bitcoin. Pulling back here a little bit, right? Wasn't that high, 78, 79,000 range for the end of last week, beginning of this week with Monday being a holiday? Well, back down to 75,000 here. On this Wednesday, 75,070 for Bitcoin here today as well. So what's happening? U.S. oil has fallen below $90 per barrel, all because there is a report that Iran agreement would restore the Strait of Hormuz traffic in 1 month. So oil is dropping based off of that news here today as they're still doing the negotiations. You know, there was kind of a tit for tat the other day. And between the U.S. and Iran, but they're still talking. Now that report says Strait of Hormuz will open within a month of it being settled here, the war being settled. Oil today, $90 a barrel. Stocks we're paying attention to early here. Well, we're going to look at Micron Technology. We looked at them yesterday here as well, 2.23% up right now. They are pushing higher here this morning. They crossed $1 trillion in market cap yesterday. They joined that very exclusive $1 trillion club. Shares were up 7% here yesterday, and the stock was the best performer on the S&P 500 this morning in pre-market trading, and they're up 2.43% right now as well. Now, you see if you're watching us on the graph on the left, it's dropped a lot here so far since it's open. That's just simply people taking their money that they've gained over the last 2 days here on this company, but still up 2.58%, Micron Technologies. Now let's go retail here and look at Bath and Body Works. Well, they're having a big day today, 13.82% for this retailer. They reported better than expected current quarter guidance in its first quarter earnings report. They forecasted earnings per share of 20 to 25 cents in its second quarter. Well, the expectation was only 21 cents. So they cover a lot of the expectation level plus some in their future guidance as well. First quarter earnings and revenue did slightly beat estimates. Bath & Body Works signaling a glowy second quarter for them coming up. Well, there you go, folks. 13.42% for Bath & Body Works here today. And then there's a company called Insulet. They are having a problem today, 6.46% down on the stock market. They're a medical device company that does insulin pods and things to that effect. Well, they have introduced a voluntary medical device correction for specific lots of several of its pods. The correction was due to a manufacturing issue that could result in insulin under-delivering to patients. That is not good out there. Recall happening. So Insulet Corporation down 6.49%. Here this morning, and about early market trading about 30 minutes into the stock market here today. Later on when we come back, well, we're going to look at those cybersecurity companies, Zscaler, Palo Alto Networks, and CrowdStrike. We're going to look at those three companies coming up. As I told you, The cybersecurity stocks doing a pullback here today as well. But first, let's get into some economic stories here, mainly the mortgage rates and the applications, etc. Total mortgage application volume did drop 8.5% last week compared with just the previous week. This is all according to, we get this information from the Mortgage Bankers Association seasonally adjusted index. Came out this morning, and the average contract interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, this is all with the conforming loan balances, the standard that everybody looks at, 832,750 or less is what the limit here in terms of pricing for a house. It increased, the mortgage rate did to 6.65%. It was at 6.56% last week. Points have risen to 2.65 excuse me. Points have risen to 0.65 from 0.60. Way too many numbers for early this morning for my brain to work as well. So you can see everything going up here. Shouldn't be a shocker with those treasury yields going up the last couple of weeks as well. That is for loans with 20% down payment, by the way, as well. The 30-year fixed rate has climbed 30 basis points over the past 5 weeks. It's its highest level since August of 2025 as well. Refinancing, well, mortgage rates are going up. Well, refinancing demand's taking a big hit as well. It did, and in fact, take the biggest hit. Those applications are down 18% for refinancing for the week. They're still 19% higher than the same week 1 year ago, but still down 18% over the last week. Last year at this time, the 30-year fixed rate was 33 basis points higher than what it is right now. So I guess it's perspective, right, over the years. Applications for a mortgage to purchase a home, well, that fell also 0.4% for the week. They were just 5% higher than the same week 1 year ago. So housing obviously still continues to be an issue. And later on in the show, we're going to look at it when we get to the local segment. We're going to look at Arizona, what the Arizona market's doing. We got some information from this mortgage report as well. We'll talk about that coming up. And, well, now we got the conference board out there. Well, the conference board came out with that consumer confidence index. We had the University of Michigan one last week. I'll remind you about those results here in just a second. But the conference board's consumer index, well, it slipped 0.7%. It's now at a number of 93.1 in May. The first decline after 3 months that it's had in gains. The measure hasn't fallen much this year as other gauges of consumer attitudes have, but it has been stuck at a low level since the COVID-19 pandemic. Before COVID-19, it regularly reached 130. Yeah, so you can see big drops here and staying at that low level. We told you last week, we told you here on the program, the University of Michigan, well, it fell. Their consumer sentiment report, it fell to a record low this month. Soaring gas prices, obviously a big concern. Food costs, also big issues. They've worsened inflation, and inflation, as we've told you before, is outpacing growth in paychecks. Well, reducing most Americans' purchasing power in this market. Americans, are just struggling here for day-to-day purchases out there as well. So that was Consumer Michigan. University of Michigan, now the Consumer Sentiment Board here. Consumer sentiment is mostly gloomy, as we should all expect. Even as the economy is still growing, unemployment rate has stayed low at the same time. Even though lots of layoffs, we saw Meta doing 1,400 layoffs here coming up as well. But some economists do argue that the gap reflects inequality in a K-shaped economy. Basically, that just means higher income Americans are benefiting from rising stock prices, and they're still spending out there, but lower income households are the ones struggling in this economy. That's what they mean by the K-shape. Yesterday's consumer confidence survey does show that confidence grew among households with incomes at or above $100,000, but it still fell for others categories underneath that. Americans' outlook on the job market also was worsened slightly. The proportion of respondents who did say jobs are plentiful, well, they dropped to 25.5%. That's the lowest in 3 years. Then, just 18.6% said jobs were hard to get. That's the smallest percentage since October. The findings reflect the low fire job market That has made it harder for those out of work to obtain new jobs. So if you are unlucky enough to get become unemployed, it's hard to replace that job out there with nobody hiring at those levels. This month, the conference board did add special questions to its survey for the first time, and they found rising prices have caused most Americans to change their spending habits. Two-thirds of respondents said they're cutting back spending in response to the increases, most of those reducing overall purchases and delaying more expensive acquisitions. Many consumers are also planning to economize on clothes, shoes, hobby items, toys, games. All of that is starting to be factored into people looking to not spend money on that, if at all possible. So, two economic reports there, kind of showing what kind of our economy is in here on this Wednesday, uh, end of May. End of May, finally, folks. Hey, now something this is happening in the back east, but I want to bring it to your attention. It could slowly go across the country here, but drivers for Uber, Lyft, those ride-hailing apps, for instance, well, they celebrated yesterday in Massachusetts. Big party happened. Well, they became the first state to recognize their union, a milestone in the growing effort to organize gig economy workers classified as independent contractors under federal labor law. Well, this could provide a model of similar campaigns gaining traction in states across the United States. Of course, California, Illinois as well, pushing hard for this to happen. Labor organizers are increasingly targeting app based industries, and drivers also grapple with the rapid expansion of self driving technology. Right? Going to put these drivers out of work. As drivers wave sign enchanted with the gold dome of the Massachusetts State House, providing a backdrop, as you see in the picture, labor leaders describe Friday's certification as the largest private sector organizing win since Ford Auto Workers unionized back in 1941. Yeah, big win here in terms of that labor perspective. Uber and Lyft said they plan to work with a new bargaining framework as negotiations move forward. Uber said it would work with the union and regulators while preserving driver flexibility and hard won benefits. While Lyft said it's committed to engaging in good faith and helping drivers succeed while keeping rideshare affordable and dependable for everyone who counts on it. The certification became possible all because Massachusetts voters approved a 2024 ballot measure, which did create a first in the nation framework allowing ride hailing drivers to unionize and bargain collectively while remaining independent contractors, which is an interesting dynamic, right? A model some business groups and legal scholars, well, they argue could face antitrust challenges under federal law. So we haven't heard the end of this, probably. Organizers say the union will ultimately represent nearly 70,000 drivers statewide, as of course it moves out there as well. Obviously, wages are a big concern and why they wanted to unionize, but deplatforming, where Uber and Lyft, if you get a bad review, just one bad review on something, they'll just take you off of their platform. Obviously, it's a big deal to drivers, and especially if they're not guilty, and get deplatformed based off of a bad review for somebody that wants a free ride out there. So these are the things that they are fighting for. So we're going to start seeing this move across the country, and then obviously some lawsuits on the antitrust side as well. So we've talked about this before, and I told you it's been coming, right? Diesel fuel is meaning things are going to get more expensive in other places. And we know food prices and consumer food here with the consumer reports and wholesale reports last week. Food prices are still going up in the inflationary side. Well, it is officially hitting your grocery store, folks. Three officiallys for that one. It's a combination of factors, obviously. Bad weather, tariffs, dwindling cattle herd. They're already pushing up grocery prices and at above average pace. Well, in April, as I told you last week or a week or two ago, whenever those reports came out, the grocery store prices rose by the most in nearly 4 years. Economists say the impact of the Iran war and the potential El Nino weather pattern that's coming will only add to the pressures coming up in 2027. Yes, to hit you at the hit to U.S. household finances from higher grocery bills, that's going to intensify just ahead of these November midterm elections coming up. And some of the polling is showing people are tired of these higher rates, so they will vote with their pocketbooks coming up as well. So the every all of this is all amplifying affordability, and it is a defining issue in the votes as well as just everyday economy stuff and the way people are talking. So that is happening. The surge in gas prices is obviously affecting it as well. But the size of autumn harvest is determined by planting decisions made in the spring. And right now, uh, fertilizer prices are through the roof because of the Strait of Hormuz issue. The latest USDA food price outlook, published Friday, it projected a 3.2% advance in grocery prices this year. Well, they said some experts said they expect inflation more on the order of 4 to 4.5%. Some experts are saying so. Buckle in on those grocery prices, folks. We're getting more and more confirmations that that is hitting your grocery stores. It's in your grocery stores now. I know it's dire, and you don't want to hear it from me. But I'm letting you know now to maybe stock up on some of those items, that you can stay for a while, perishable foods like noodles, etc. So you don't have to worry about those price increases as much here coming up as well. And then kind of going into the sports side, but this has the potential to change the NFL. We talked a little bit about it on the main event yesterday on the sports side, but the Supreme Court yesterday did refuse to intervene in a discrimination lawsuit. This is the one led by Brian Flores, who is the former Miami Dolphins head coach, against the NFL. It's allowing the case to proceed toward trial instead of what the NFL wants, the arbitration process. The justices of the Supreme Court rebuffed an appeal from the league. They wanted the league wants the case handled through that arbitration process that they've always been able to get everything pushed through. And the arbitration process favors the NFL in secrecy as well as most of the findings as well. They'd rather do that than go to open court coming up in this battle. John Gruden has a lawsuit that also has been said should go to trial instead of the arbitration uh, process as well. Now, if you don't know, Brian Flores is a black man. He sued the league and three teams in February of 2022. He alleged the league was rife with racism, was his exact wording, regarding its hiring practices when it comes to black NFL coaches. He was later joined in the lawsuit by other coaches, Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton, also African American men. Flores, who was fired by the Dolphins shortly before the suit was filed, well, he's still working in the league. He's Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. The NFL has argued Flores should go through that arbitration rather than the legal system. Lower courts, though, have said, nope, going through the law process of courts out there. The league said it respected the Supreme Court's decision, which does allow lower court rulings to stay in place, meaning trial. But the NFL said it's fully prepared to defend ourselves as this matter proceeds. The big thing and why this is important from a business perspective, the NFL has always been able to hide the way they operate and everything in this arbitration process. When you go to court, you got to do things like discovery, right? Text messages, emails, other things, and they have to be put out there into the public in a trial. NFL does not want that. That's why this is a big deal and could change the NFL in a lot of ways, that some of the ways we don't even know about coming up as well, by them not getting through this arbitration process. When we come back here at McCollum on Business, here on this Wednesday, we keep it rolling. Local stories coming up here as well. And then we'll end, of course, with a food story like we do. Chipotle fans, the reaction to this issue with them, or this thing they're coming out with, hasn't been as positive as that honey chicken that they have. I'll tell you about a new chicken offering. Well, could be coming to Chipotle. It is coming in California. Could be coming here. I don't know, do we need multiple chicken options there? We'll talk about it. Come on back. We'll call them on business. back here, McCollum on Business. Appreciate you joining us here on this Wednesday. Of course, at 7 a.m. is where we come to you live here on the YouTube channel. TME Media AZ is where you can find us on your days. Of course, you can also find us on demand right afterwards on on YouTube, TME Media AZ, as well as on Rumble as well. Rumble.com/user/TME Media is where you can find all of our programming. Just go down and you'll see at the top there, once you go to that main page right above the videos, you'll see like some links. Click on the channel button. It'll allow you to click on the individual channel of the show you want to watch. Just kind of makes it a little easier to find the shows there as well. And of course, there on Rumble, you can also find The Real Matrix every Friday at noon. New episode of The Real Matrix comes out as well. Last week's episode, Data Centers, up now for you to watch. Of course, they have their own podcast system. The Real Matrix Angry Patriot is what you search, and you will find that there for you. For those of you that rather listen to that program, we appreciate everybody that's found that program, however you've done so as well. And all of our programming is there, including that Real Matrix. Well, everything's up there, except for the Real Matrix is up at YouTube as well. So you got this show here, McCollum on Business, the main event, live on YouTube, 8 to 10 a.m. as well. TME Media AZ. Then you got the pit stop will be up later today. By 2 p.m., the pit stop will be up there for you. We look back at racing last weekend, 8,500. Of course, all the Charlotte racing there on the NASCAR side, including the rain-shortened truck race, the rain-shortened Coca-Cola 600. We have some thoughts about that, folks. And, of course, look ahead to this weekend's racing. IndyCars in Detroit. NASCAR, of course, gets underway this weekend as well. So we'll have all of that on the pit stop coming up on demand, YouTube, on that TME Media AZ, as well as on the Rumble, rumble.com/user/TME Media. And, of course, join us live, the main event. Join us live, 8 to 10 a.m. as well here on this Wednesday. And, folks, with all that being said, let's get right back into that Market Watch. Good day on the market. So far, everything is up. Dow Jones is up 286 points right now. Now, the S&P 500, I told you, cybersecurity stocks are pulling back. They're 2 points up right now for the S&P 500. The NASDAQ, well, it's down 41 points here, 26,606. The S&P 500 is trending down here right now as well as the trading day has gone on. We're about an hour roughly into the trading day. Russell 2K, it's up 1 point right now as well for it. So big move on the Dow. Everything else kind of having some pullback here today, including Bitcoin down under 75,000 for the first time in a couple weeks here. 74,760 as that continues its decline today as well. Oil is down today. It's below $90 here on the global market. All that is because of a report the Iran agreement would restore Strait of Hormuz traffic within a month after the deal is signed here coming up from that perspective. And so that's the big news out there. We're waiting to find out what's happening with that agreement that supposedly is coming soon. Stocks we're paying attention to right now, we're going to look at those cybersecurity stocks. Zscaler is the first one we're going to look at. They're down 30.27% right now. Yeah, cloud security company guided for the current quarter revenue of between $875 to $878 million. Well, the analysts were seeking $879 million. So their current quarter revenue guidance is below the expectation level. The company's fiscal third quarter adjusted earnings were $1.08 per share. That did beat the forecast of $1.01 per share. $850 million in revenue, well, that even exceeded the $835 million that was estimated in revenue as well. That guidance number is taking this stock today 30.18% down, and Zscaler is also taking that whole cybersecurity, we'll call it the market out there. Palo Alto Networks is the next stock we're going to look at. Well, all because Zscaler's earnings have brought down some of its peers here. Their Palo Alto Networks is one of them, 2.73% down for it. And then CrowdStrike also down today, 2.7. Oh, I'm sorry. CrowdStrike is 3.82% down right now. So they're getting pulled down because of the Zscaler reporting happening today, and that's taking down the S&P 500 and to a certain extent the Nasdaq here today as well on that side. It is interesting how one bad stock can take down a whole industry of stocks out there as well. Let's get into some local stories here as well. And now this is more of a U.S. thing, but it will could affect us here as we do have obviously power plants here in the here in Arizona, excuse me. And there's a U.S. Senate bill out there that is new on the market. It could remove some regulations around building materials that are used in nuclear plants. So, federal officials, they're trying to recraft regulations around nuclear power. And federal officials are always trying to do this. They're trying to reduce costs and speed up development, all because of the energy demands that are out there, data centers, etc. Well, the Build Nuclear with Local Materials Act is what this act is called. It is in the Senate right now, the U.S. Senate. It allowed commercial grade steel and concrete in non safety related parts of plants rather than more expensive nuclear grade materials. Senator Mark Kelly, by the way, is sponsoring this bill, here from Arizona. Supporters of the bill say allowing commercial grade materials won't make reactors less safe because they're going to use them in you'll still have to use nuclear grade stuff in those areas. But they're talking about outer buildings, et cetera, is what they'd like to do. But the Union for Concerned Scientists, Nuclear Power Safety Director, his name's Edward Lyman. Well, he's not sure safety is an issue. It will not be an issue here. He said the Nuclear Regulatory Commission already allows some plants to use commercial grade materials as part of their buildings. And that means just like building parts and material that's used in everyday, commercial buildings is what they're talking about, not the nuclear grade stuff. But he did go on to say he worries safety could be compromised when it comes to retrofitting specific plants out there. Some of those non-nuclear grade stuff could end up where it shouldn't be, etc. Is the concern from the opponents out there, and that's a big opponent with the Union for Concerned Scientists, Concerned Scientists. That's a big union. That's a big union name out there. Kind of says what they are concerned about, right, and what they want out there in terms of the safety. But Mark Kelly doing that legislation, and like I said, that affects us because we do have that APS owned plant out there, a Pinnacle West plant owned out there at the 303 there, and in terms of nuclear stuff out there. We spoke of mortgage interest rates hitting 9-month highs earlier in the show. You can go back and watch that. If you did miss that here, they're 6.65% here as well. Well, we also find this out is due to interest rates. One of the reasons Phoenix led U.S. metros in April with a 29.1% of listings seeing price cuts. Yep, there was a 2.2% percentage point drop in that reporting from last year in terms of price cuts. Local agents do cite those high interest rates, inflation concerns, extreme heat, and the high transportation costs as factors slowing down demand, right? When gas is high, you have to go farther, different areas to find affordable housing here, right? Downtown's more expensive than in the far West Valley or far East Valley, and you have to commute more. Well, gas prices are going to keep you from wanting to buy a place farther out, right? So all of that's in a big factor here. Some properties do sell quickly when priced competitively, but many sellers are adjusting expectations after testing higher price points and facing longer days on the market. I've heard some people say their house has been on the market 90 days and only a couple showings have happened. I was reading stories on that yesterday as well. A growing share of homeowners do remain unwilling to move unless mortgage rates do drop below 5%. That's up from 64% in 2024. It's 83% today, folks. Huge number drop here. Until interest rates get down to low levels, you're not going to have people unload their 3 and 4% interest rates, 2% interest rates, until interest rates drop back down to those levels, which is causing the stalemate in homes right now as well. We get that, by the way, from the Point Survey out there, those numbers. Experts warn that such rates are unlikely. Of course, low rates is what we're talking about without major economic shifts. So we all know that's going to happen. Inflation's going to have to come down, gas prices down, etc. So building materials can slide down and cause the interest rates to drop a little bit. Yeah. So the everybody keeping their houses, it's going to limit housing supply. It has limited housing supply, especially here in the valley, and keep out market activity muted for many years coming up, which means buyers of homes, well, you have to adjust your expectations because you're not going to have many choices and everything, and then you're just not going to be able to move out of it. Like for instance, I have too big of a house for me and two kids. I'd love to downgrade, but you can't. I'm going to spend more and have a higher interest, higher mortgage with interest rate if I move out of my house into a smaller place. Going to have to stay put. Makes economic sense just to stay put out there is what we're facing. It's got to loosen up for this market, and the economy as a whole will increase once you get that problem solved. But we're nowhere near solving it. And housing prices, well, we lead the nation in drops here in the month of April. And then, folks, we'll end the show with a food story here for you. Yeah, Chipotle, they're in this chicken phrase here where they're trying to get different chickens out there that you want to eat. They're trying a whole bunch of limited time options, etc. Well, they are testing a new crispy chicken protein offering at its stores. Now, they're doing this in California first, is where the test is. Some diners, though, they still clamoring for the for Chipotle's current limited time offering. They want that to be permanent Chipotle honey chicken. It's still out there. You can still get the Chipotle honey chicken. It's a huge hit by all accounts, but Chipotle says it's still limited time and won't make it permanent. Now they're testing other versions of chicken as well. In a statement shared with USA Today, Chipotle said they will, quote, use guests and operational feedback to determine whether to move forward with a broader market test as part of our stage gate process. Here's the bottom line. Yes, they're testing it in California to see if people like it, but they also have inventory problems. That's the problem with the honey chipotle one that everybody is clamoring for. Chipotle does remain relatively tight-lipped about its products. Now, social media users, they've shared photos of signage at test restaurants, and it shows that the crispy chicken is free of gluten, antibiotics, and artificial ingredients. So, what's the internet's reaction of this new crispy chicken? Now, like I said, only available in California right now. We'll see if they move it over. But the big story here is Chipotle is trying a whole bunch of different chicken options and flavors for us as consumers out there. They market this new chicken as tender, light, and crispy. Here's my question, and some of the online reviews of it or talks, they caught the same thing that I got. How does it stay crunchy when it's mixed with all the stuff in there, like the wet stuff, the salsas, the guac, the queso, etc. It's gonna get soggy. So you get this to go. By the time you get where you're going, it's gonna be soggy chicken. I don't know about you guys. That's the worst kind of chicken. That's healthy for you. Let's put it that way. The worst kind of chicken is the Ebola or the disease chicken. But after that, soggy chicken is just terrible. Absolutely terrible. So that's the question on it. But the bigger point on this story, because we can't get this new one here. But if you go on vacation to California this summer, you might find a Chipotle where it's available out there. A lot of people are just railing on a lot of comments here, a lot of things on this. If you do a search on the social medias for this new crispy chicken, I want to say 85 to 90% of the comments are just make the Chipotle honey chicken permanent. The reason why they're not making that permanent, I believe, I don't have any facts behind it, it's just a supply issue. They can't keep it in stock, or it's the price on it's kind of up and down right now, and things to that effect. So that's why they're still doing that limited time, even though apparently most people want. And I haven't had the Chipotle honey chicken there yet, as of yet either. So, folks, with that being said, I appreciate you joining us here on this Wednesday edition of the show. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow, 7 a.m. on Thursday. Ann says, I can't imagine crispy chicken in a bowl or taco. Yeah, that's my problem. First thing I thought of was sogginess. Maybe that's why they're only doing it in California. They eat some weird stuff over there, right? Kale and all of that stuff. So maybe it's good for them. We'll find out moving forward if that's a thing. It's just soggy chicken. I'm just grossed out by just the thought of soggy chicken when you get it to go as well. Hey, folks, we'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. on Thursday. Come and join us, of course. We got the main event coming up next, 8 to 10 a.m. Hey, join us on YouTube, TME Media AZ. Of course, catch us on demand later in the day. Share us with your friends as well. We'd appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Have a great Wednesday night.